So if our definition of wealth is so much more, then wealth has to come from the inside out. And it seems to me that the heart of wealth is adding value. One thing about trust is that it's dependable. You can depend on something. So whatever you can depend on, you can trust. So there's one correlation there between trust and dependence. I can count on that chair holding me up. I trust it. What does trust feel like for you? What does trust feel like for you? You may need to do a contrastive analysis. What does it feel like when I can't trust something? When something doesn't come through, when something isn't dependable, when something isn't loyal, when... Fear. So maybe fear of... While you get your mouth full. Fear of...
Fear of being... No, really. Fear of being betrayed, or fear of being let down, or
okay,
fear
so
of being misunderstood. It can be any kind of fear.
Okay, so whatever we trusted, now we can't trust it to happen. We can't depend on it. So that may have effect upon us. We'll fall down. There'll be conflict. There'll be distress. So trust is a relative word. It's a relationship word, as is distrust. Anybody else, the feeling of trust or distrust?
I'm just trying to give Tony your exercise, really. To me, it is a calibration of my comfort zone.
A calibration of your comfort zone, okay.
Yeah, if it's something I highly trust, then I'm at the top end of comfort. Okay. And as I move down to distrust, I become uncomfortable.
Okay. So when we think about being in a state of trust, we're pretty comfortable because come on in. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Elvis is coming back to the building. I can trust that there's somebody at that door wanting something. So trust is... Okay, some more descriptions. Who got the mic? Okay, Mark.
Guarded or unguarded attention. It's almost like if there's not trust, then my guard is up. There's a constant guard, and with trust, the guard is able to let down. It's more relaxing. Okay, so not only are we in comfort and we're breathing easily and comfortably, but when we're trusting, we're open. But when we're not trusting, we're more cautious, hyper alert, guard is up, and we're more in a defensive mode because we can't trust whatever, the world or person or self or whatever. Gary?
You can allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Okay.
Whether it's with a person or with the chair, if you're sitting yourself down and the chair doesn't hold you, you're pretty vulnerable.
Okay.
Or in a personal relationship.
So trust is very close to commitment because you're committing yourself to that chair because you trust it, and as you commit yourself, you're making yourself vulnerable to whatever it is because you trust, and there's no need for defense. So there's that quality of vulnerability.
I thought of two things when you asked that. One was that for me, it's a sense of safety interpersonally, and how much energy do I have to devote to things other than just being who I am.
Okay.
So it brings in and the second way is trust. Do I trust that someone's going to come through for me with what they say, or am I going to have to pull some of my own resources to accomplish what I need to accomplish?
Okay. So as Brian mentioned, there's a sense of comfort, and there's also a sense of safety when we trust. I feel safe with whatever it is or what thing it is, or if it's I feel safe with. And yeah, and then the energy thing that that I can be at ease with it and I don't have to have my resources or defenses.
Something Gary said did something in my brain there. I think trust to me is like the sense of being invulnerable without having to defend yourself. Just a sense of being invulnerable, but not because you're defending yourself. If that makes sense.
So here's a paradox. We're vulnerable to it because we're not vulnerable to it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I think I would like to add the word belief, because there is a belief that things are okay. And there is the word of expectation.
So here's some other relationships
belief and expectation.
That if you trust that chair, you believe it's going to hold you up.
Yes.
And if you believe it's going to hold you up, then you give yourself to that. Okay.
Yeah,
so belief to that, and then you can expect it.
Well, I was thinking about, it's about a knowing. You know, if you know that something is going to happen, you can actually trust.
Okay.
You're in a state of trust also.
So the more our understanding increases, the more we can trust. The more we understand dynamics and principles of a process, even though I've never done something, I can trust it. I can trust I could learn to fly a plane. I've never flown a plane. I've never taken pilot lessons, but I trust that I could learn that because I've learned to drive a car or to do some other. So the more I understand dynamics, even if I haven't had the experience, I can trust it. Okay, so Mike again. Who's got the mic?
Oh, so the other thing that came with me is also a sense of acceptance.
Okay.
Trust is particularly in relationships, so that even if it doesn't work 100%, or if there's some miscommunication, something, the fact that there's a trust, then you can accept that it's okay, that the positive intentions were there.
Okay.
And so it allows for enhancing the relationship because there's nothing that can unground it.
Okay.
That acceptance that is there.
So what we're working on is creating a working definition of the state of trust. I think we were all born trusting. I think that's the natural state, that we just trust. So children tend to be naive. They just take you at your word. They just trust whatever. And then we have to learn to not trust. That distrusting and not trusting are learned things because we have awareness of that could be dangerous, or I can't trust that person, or that person has not come through, or that thing, or I don't know what's there. And so we learn distrust, and then we can start spreading distrust everywhere to where we just don't trust at all. And more hurts and traumas can create. But our natural state is to trust.
So I would suggest it's also an absence of sort of caution markers in the brain. So like distrust, we have like, we have to put a certain amount of our attention in a sort of diligent state on, whether it's somebody or a thought or a possibility that might happen or might happen again.
Okay.
And so the absence of that would be a state of trust too, not having that.
Now the importance of metastating trust seems to me to arise from the fact that if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to have to trust. Trust other people, trust knowledge, trust myself, trust that I can handle if I get knocked down, I can trust that I can come back, trust my perceptions, trust my emotions. And it's not absolute trust. I'll trust that anything I feel that has to be it's not that, but it's trusting that I can feel, I can think, I can create, I can value, I can say, I can speak up, I can negotiate, I can do, I can take action, I can correct. That I can trust myself in moving through things, and I can trust myself to find and distinguish trustworthy persons versus persons who are not. And so the sense of trust. It seems to me in the issue of health, trusting our bodies is key. I've worked with 5 people with cancer. And one of the things I found in working with them is I eventually came so that one of the first questions I'm going to ask is, do you trust your immune system? And what I find is that most people don't, because the immune system has made a mistake, and now the immune system has become problematic, And then we make it worse by not trusting it. So that one of the first things I want to do is to get a person to trust it. And there's always objections. But it made a mistake. How can I trust it now? Oh, so you're consciously going to run all your healing programs. You're consciously going to run your heart and your pressure and release of the neurochemicals. You're going to consciously do all this. So it seems to me that if I'm not trusting if I trust that my body knows how to heal itself, and that what we do in medicine and psychology and other places is to take out interferences so the natural healing process can occur, then trusting that there is a self-healing, self-organizing, self-process, renewing process, and trusting that again. So I have found that to be very useful. Whether that is something that has helped some of the remissions or not, I don't know. But I know that trust is a very resourceful state in the terms of remembering things. If you don't trust that you can remember, if you don't trust that you'll get it, if you don't trust your learning skills, if you don't, it sets when we bring distrust and non-confidence, the lack of confidence, it sets up a process that I know is not useful. So one of the things it seems to me is moving forward, and what an attitude that starts emerging as a Gestalt is if I trust my mind. Yes, it's fallible, but it's about the only tool I've got to figure out what's real. And I'll trust my emotions, not only accept my emotions and appreciate them, but trust. And sure, they can be distorted and they can be inaccurate at times. They're fallible too. And I'm going to trust my verbal skills and the skills to get along, relationships, and trust myself. And trust my ability to bounce back. And trust my optimism. And trust some of these states we've been. What if we took trust and layered it on all the states you've been through with personal, trust your focus. Trust your ability to pop out when you need to. Trust your ability for appreciation and for all these other things that we've been layering. If we trust it, it seems like it then would commission it just to be in a self-organizing way. So what I'd like to do is to access the feeling of trust, and because we've gone around trying to operationalize it, it's a complex feeling really, and yet it's a sense of safety and comfort. It's a sense of being unguarded. It's a sense of releasing, and it's a sense of giving ourselves to something. And then what if we took that feeling and layered it back upon self, upon life, upon people, so we have a general sense of trust, and distrust is the exception. Now, if you've moved through life and you've been hurt and hurt and hurt, and there's been disappointment, and you made an executive decision, I'm not trusting anybody. I'm not trusting myself. You may have to destroy that decision before you can step into this one, but this will be trusting. And for health effects, I go through this from time to time. I'll just run through this pattern of trusting my immune system, trusting my autonomic nervous system, trusting my body that it knows how to heal itself. And so that's what I want to do with this. Who'd like to play with this up here? Cheryl? First hand up. And so notice what it's like when you just, because trust is so automatic and so immediate, we hardly pay attention to the feeling. So what does trust feel like for you?
You want me to say?
Yeah. Begin to say.
It just feels natural. It just feels, like it's there.
It's hard to say. So just be with that feeling when you do trust. Notice how you breathe when you just trust. Notice the muscle tension or the release of that tension. Notice probably it's real quiet inside. Probably there's just not much being said as far as internal dialogue. It's real quiet. It's relaxed. It's comfortable. A sense of safety. No sense of caution markers in the mind. That there's just an easy sense. So what I want you to do is to feel that. that sense of trust. And now, just to add more and more, think of some things you can trust, you can count on, you can depend on, about yourself, about other people. And each time you think of something, I can trust that. It might be an idea you can trust. It might be a person you can trust. But just feel that sense of trust. As we do that, to amplify that, to make that more, let's think about something you don't trust. Something that, I'm not trust that. I'm cautious. Notice what it's like when you're cautious. Notice how you're breathing, your posture, your experience on the inside when you're not trusting. It's probably not too pleasant of a state.
No.
Okay, and notice how that's different from trust. Okay, because sometimes by making that contrast, distrust, trust, it helps you really, oh, that's what this is. This is trust. And what I'd like you to do, you probably have some areas in your life that you'd like to trust. So what we want to do is to apply that. But first of all, let's just bring this back to your powers, to your responses. Just feel a sense of trust. You've taken a sense of ownership. It's my thinking, my feeling, my speaking, my behaving. You've owned it. Now trust it. Not absolutely, but trust it. That it's yours. And just imagine feeling that sense of trust for your responses. Trusting your ownership of it. Okay. Now, feel this trust about self. However you define yourself, feel this about you. And when you feel this about you, about Cheryl, how does that settle?
Feels good.
Okay. Any objections? Anything in the back of the mind that may not like that?
I'd started to work with the trust issue before we started today, but I think a lot of it has been, a lot of the objections have been answered because my thinking was, and I think it was mentioned, is to have an absolute trust in my ability to react in the exact right way that aligns with.
Right way.
So I realized I was meditating a dragon.
Okay.
So I became aware of that.
Okay.
I know that I need to add something to the trust, and I've been playing with it. I first thought it might be faith.
Okay.
But it didn't feel like it was enough.
Okay.
Because I need to express fully whatever I've learned, whatever I've done, whatever I do from this place of trust. But it's settled much better now, but I still think there's maybe something I need to add to it.
Okay, so access that sense of all your powers, all your responses, maybe that whole energy bubble of your powers, and as you trust that, in ways that's appropriate, because it's not going to be absolute, but you trust it generally. And part of trusting is that feedback loop that I can learn, I can adjust, and make it better and better. What other quality would you like to have? Quality of your feeling, quality of your speaking, quality of your behavioral responses. What quality would you like to have so that as you trust that these are the tools for affecting things, for influencing yourself and others?
It's clarity.
Clarity. Okay. And clarity to you means?
That I have a clear sense of how I'm going to respond.
Okay.
Or just trusting in, or having clarity in the trust that I would be able to observe something and know that yes, that's how it is.
Okay. What if instead of clarity, what if you could learn in the process? Because if it's dependent upon clarity before you begin, or even clarity before you act, then you can't act unless you're clear. But what if you trusted you can learn? And the clarity can come.
I could do that, but what's happening is that would that could go against what I value or what I believe.
And what do you value and believe?
In whatever context it could, my trust needs to be aligned.
Okay. Okay. So let's step back from that for just a moment and quality control it. When you make your trust dependent upon clarity and everything else that you're describing on the inside, does that really enhance your process and empower you? Okay. So what would enhance? What would empower you?
Definitely the ability to be able to learn, but then the thinking is then there's no alignment. So what is my outcome? If I'm learning for a specific outcome with alignment with intentions, and I don't have that, well, I'm not focusing on that.
What does alignment mean to you when you use the word alignment?
It's congruency. It's being authentic.
So how help me to understand, you're not coming from being authentic? How does clarity play a part of being authentic or
being clear about beliefs and values? And
so no permission to discover those beliefs and values or to keep adjusting them as you have new and different experiences?
That would work.
Okay, so that you could operate out of some core beliefs, but always refining them, always updating them, always correcting them, and being congruent with the fact that whatever I believe, I will be congruent with. What if the congruency was, I'll be congruent with whatever I believe, rather than I'm congruent before I start?
So I'll be congruent with whatever I believe. And that's a process. Okay.
So what if we brought that to the sense of trust of yourself as you move through the world of people and events, so that even though as you move into things that are unclear, things that are ambiguous, things that are new and different, into when you stretch into new territory, and you do so from trust of self, trust that you'll operate from your core beliefs, but you'll always be learning and updating and growing and congruent with whatever you decide. How does that feel?
It's more. I feel more open.
Okay, feel more open. Okay. So let's get the sense of trust again and just trust yourself. Trust these processes of thinking, valuing, caring, understanding, solving problems, talking, interacting, discovering, refining. How does that feel? Trusting all that. Trusting that you can make it happen as you go. As you trust, you can also identify things not to trust. You can trust your distrust.
Okay.
That when you have those caution flags in the brain about different things, you can trust that. But that's a time to use your same processes. Let me ask questions about that. Let me explore that. Let me take effective action. And you can even trust when you feel the distrust. Okay.
Okay.
So how does that feel?
It gives me a sense of that I would be able to move more comfortably, do what I need to do from a more comfortable, safe place.
Okay. Are you aligned with this?
Yes.
Okay. What does it feel like when you trust your body? for health. Trust your immune system. Trust your body. Trust that your body knows how to heal itself. Trust that sleep is regenerative. Trust that eating right and exercising right is good for you. And just trust some of those health processes. How does that feel?
It frees up a lot of energy because it's not. It's something that's being done.
Okay.
That I not need to consciously track.
Okay. Okay. So let's just put that into a spin so that you can be in a place, in a mindset, an attitude of trusting yourself, your body, and trusting life as you move through. That is not the fact that there's some people, some situations that you can't trust, but it's the fact that you've got the processes for discernment.
Okay.
Okay, and is this textured in a way that feels supportive for you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So imagine just moving out into the world with this in the next weeks, months, the rest of this year, and into the future. And will the executive part of your mind take responsibility to let you have this?
Yes.
And keep this? So that trust can be your way of moving, and distrust can be the exception when you do find that. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
This may take a little bit more distinction, making sure that the person is okay with what they're trusting, how they're trusting, and the quality of their trust. Yesterday we spent a lot of time talking about taking risks. Well, we can take risks if we trust I can handle things, and that's what we want to do, build up that state.
Michael, I was noticing that you were anchoring distrust.
I did that for a couple of reasons. One is I want to make a contrastive analysis. Here's what trust feels like. And you know the opposite state. Think about somebody, something that you don't trust. Now, and then now notice what this state is like. And so part of it is to go more and more into the state of trust, to do the contrast analysis. Then, as we move through the world, when we need the cautions, when we need the barriers, when we need to have the discernment, I want to welcome my ability to distrust. I want to trust that ability. Because I don't want to, without that, then I'm naive. Then I'm wide open. Then I'm gullible. And I don't want to create that state. I want to create wise, intelligent, smart ability to use that, but I don't want that to be the frame of my life. So I want to welcome it and position it at a lower level.
Very good.
Okay, so one of the ways I do the anchoring is that I use it more by pressure than by touch. Sometimes I'm touching, but I'm just holding, and then when I say there are things to distrust, then I'm going to be putting pressure there that this is the signal. And so I'm using, I do pressure more than just touch in the anchoring. And I do that so that my hand is there, and it's not like, okay, that's why. So the setting off the anchor is more through pressure than it is through touch. And so that's a good awareness, because otherwise, if it wasn't that way, then it would be collapsing anchors. And in this case, we really don't want to do that. Those of you with a meta program of not trusting, not believing, being skeptical, and those are great skills. I want people with those skills doing quality control and running the checklist on the planes I fly. So that's why distrust or skepticism is not bad. But if you're doing it to yourself about your skills, then it's self-doubt, and that would not be the most resourceful state. So we want to sequence this, but those of you who are highly skilled in that may be more challenged with this particular exercise, but just choose how much trust you want. In relationships, I think this is where we have to, that the best thing is coming from trust until something cues us, don't trust now, challenge, confront, and deal with a person to come through. So 15 minutes each, and metastating trust. Any comments, questions on that pattern? Okay.
I had quite a big aha. As you know, I've been seriously or life-threateningly ill a couple of times in my life. And what I actually did was, I've been alive 50-odd years, and when I look at the number of days involved in how long I've been alive, and the number of days I've actually been ill, despite what I do to my body, it's done a fantastic job. And that was a big one around the immune system, a very big aha.
Okay. Okay.
That's good.
Okay, good.
50-odd years?
Yeah.
50-odd years. Well, we respect our elders.
Well, for me, the interesting thing was that I trust in myself, but in some situations that maybe I don't have all the answers, so I try to trust in God. So to leave my trust to God was the difficulty.
Okay.
And right now it's okay. So it's feel good.
Okay, good. So you made that application to it. Good. Other comments on that one? Was it easy to do, or took a little work to make it fit together? Okay, Bob.
So I had an experience that I came to this place of suddenly being able to distrust, or trust my distrust. Yeah, that one. And then it was like the trust of trusting opened up for me. So that was really powerful.
Okay. Okay.
I could trust more.
Yeah. So and that's nice layering, trusting our trust, and then it solidifies it, makes it even more robust, perhaps. I want to go to the opening up pattern. This is on page 63, the opening up pattern, and tell you a little bit about how this pattern came about. It's really a pattern that you can run on yourself, because it's one of the few patterns that I came up with, that I did on myself, and came up with it by just using the reflexive awareness. I was out running one day, and as I was running, I had been working on frame games and references and things, and I came around a corner. And as I came around a corner, just the default program happened. You know, I'm checking my time, because I run around a corner, because where I live, they've sequenced all the streets and roads into half-mile blocks. So we have 30 road, 30 half road, and 31 road, and 32. And then we have F road, and then F and a half road, and G road, and and it's all set out in this grid. So every time I run, you know, I turn F road on 30 and a half, and I know I've gone a half mile or a mile or 3 miles or whatever. And so it's an easy way of sequencing, you know, so I don't have to run around the track. You know, I used to do that, you know, I have 4 times around the track. So I would come around and I look at my watch, and then suddenly it dawned on me, what am I doing? And it was like, well, I'm getting my reference point. And I'm measuring my reference point in distance versus time. And then the next thought of my mind was, what does that mean to me? And so I went through this layering thing. I thought, well, it means I'm measuring my run. And why would I do that? Well, because I want to run at a good clip. Well, why would I want to run at? What does that mean to me? What opens up to me? What comes to me? What am I thinking about when I think about running at a good club? Well, if I push myself a little bit, that'll help my fitness. Well, why is that important? And what comes to me? What's that all about? Well, if I have more health and if more fitness, then I'll have more energy. And so I just kept letting it open up. And so why is having more energy? Well, more energy, then more quality of life, more experience with it. And so it just opened up. And so as I continued to run, I thought, well, let me play around with this something else. I thought, I like writing. When I get done with this, I'm going to go home and write. What's my reference about that? What's my frame of reference about writing? Well, first thing that came to my mind, first thing that kind of opened up to me about writing was that I write to clarify my mind, to learn. So what opens up to me about learning? Well, learning gives me more choices, more clarity, more movement. What opens up to me about learning and clarity and movement? Well, what opens up to me then is that I can do all kinds of things. I can create products for myself and products for others. So what opens up to me? Well, it's a way of getting known, getting messages out. And so I just kept opening it up. And using that generic, unspecified phrase of what opens up to you, what comes to you when you go there, just lets it be whether it's a belief, an idea, a thought, an understanding, an expectation, any logical level. So it's generic in that sense. So a few days later, I was working with a client who I had been seeing at that time, and she was a post office supervisor. And we got talking, and she was complaining about some things, and just that things weren't going right. And she was complaining about being interrupted. And I said, okay, so what action would you perform, or could you perform, that would improve the quality of this experience at your work? And she said, well, if I could just welcome interruptions when I get to work instead of feeling irritated when they occur. So I asked her about a behavior. What behavior do you want? If I could just handle and welcome the interruptions. So how would you like to respond when the interruptions occur? So now I'm asking about the quality of the interruption. She said, well, if I could be calm and just let go of whatever I'm doing so I could fully engage that person for the moment, solve whatever their problem is, and then get back. If I could do that, if I could be calm and clean about that, I'd like that. So you'd like to respond to interruptions more calmly. And what would be some other qualities that you'd like to have in that? She said, well, patience, feeling relaxed, just letting things go. Then I'd be able to take interest in that person, and I'd be more curious. So I then made a list of her qualities of that behavior, patience, relaxation, interest, and curiosity, and asked her the state question. What states do you need to be in to be able to pull that off? She said, well, I need to be centered. Then I asked her, well, what belief do you need to have about that? And her response at that time was, well, I need to be the all-powerful Wizard of Oz who can answer all questions. I said, really? She said, well, no, but I'd like to. She said, it's really not that big of a deal. The poor Slavs need my help. I said, the poor Slavs need your help. She said, well, not really. She said, I just get irritated when I get interrupted from my work. And she says, I said, so what is this all about? What belief would support you? And she said, well, that this is my work. That being interrupted, that's my job, to be interrupted. This is how I get my money. So I might as well enjoy it. So I said, do you believe that? She said, yeah. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, I do. And I said, really? And she said, yes, I do. And, of course, I'm just kind of opening up that belief system. So I said to her, so it's just part of the job, and when you do it, it's no big deal. What belief opens up to you that would support that one? She said, well, I believe that if I don't get job satisfaction, that I don't need to get job satisfaction in this one area of my life, I can get it from other areas. I said, well, that sounds like a supporting belief, that you don't have to be getting enjoyment from every single thing you do, that this is just part of the job. And I said, do you believe that? And she said, yeah, I believe that. And I said, well, when you believe that, how fully do you feel it? When you believe it, how fully do you feel it? Of course, that's one of those insulation questions. And she said, well, about a 4. And I said, how fully would you like to believe it? She said, well, I'd like to believe about a 9 or a 10. And I said, well, just let it double so that you can begin to feel that. And I said, as you feel that now fully, what opens up to you that would support that even more? And this begins that opening up process. She said, well, that I can take this job lightly and not so seriously, and that'll make things better. And I said, do you believe that? She said, yeah. And I said, how fully do you now believe that? And so she started amplifying it again. And I said, when you believe that you can take this job lightly, that things will go better, what opens up to you when you fully believe that? And she said, well, then I'd be a competent and effective manager. Do you believe that? Yes, I believe that. And when you believe that fully and feel that even fully, what opens up to you about that? And she said that this is my goal, to do things well, that I do things well. And I kept repeating the opening up and the feeling it fully over and over. And she says, what opens up to you about that? And she said, that's why we're put here on earth, to shine and to not be dull. And what opens up to you about that? Well, when I do that, I honor my Creator. So I had this whole ladder of meta-states. And so then I decided to bring it down. So when you start with the idea of fully attending to somebody who interrupted you in a calm and relaxed way, out of being centered, so that you do that because it's your job, and you do it, and you don't have to get full satisfaction from that because you can get that from other areas, and you do that because you can take your job lighter, and that'll make things go better, because you'll be a competent, effective manager, because things will go better, and then you'll be shining and honoring your Creator. Do you believe all of that? And she was just glowing. She was just radiating, because it's her beliefs that were teased out. And I said, how fully do you believe all of that? Well, the way she was radiating, I really believe that. How does it now feel to look at that person interrupting you with those eyes of all that belief system? Does any part of you object to having this? Are you fully aligned with that? And so then we future paste it. So that's what this pattern is about. It's about opening up and getting supporting beliefs. And it's a one way, we have another way in a little bit, to supercharge our attitude. And of course, it's not adding anything that's not there, it's just teasing it open and identifying it. So the pattern on page 63, begin with some behavior that you do or you'd like to do, and we'll describe it at sensory-based level. So we're going to start at the primary state, identifying a behavior in some context and with regard to some event of our life, and we'll start there and identify that behavior, and then we're just going to go backwards and up as we identify what are the qualities of this behavior you want. And when we identify the qualities of the behavior, then the states, what state would I have to be in, or several states I'd have to be in order to pull off that behavior in response to that event. And then as we identify the states, what would you need to believe in order to have that state? And then what opens up to you about that, what opens up to you about that, and we'll just move up the levels of states until we get all the different states. Number 5, elicit each belief in order until it elicits the next belief. And you may want to write down one-word descriptions of each belief as you go up so that you can keep them in mind. And when you believe that, and I want to change the words here, how fully do you feel that belief? What's there on number 5, the third bullet point, is how much do you fully feel? Just cross out much, and how fully do you feel this belief? How fully do you feel this belief? And then we'll iterate. We'll iterate it again and again until we get to the top, repeating the questions all the way up as we've done with some other things, and then run the program quickly. And that'll be the importance of identifying the different beliefs. Run it quickly. That is, put it all together quickly and run it quickly so that a person gets the whole system activated in one go. So this is opening that up. Now, what we're doing with this particular one is looking at a positive thing. What we've done with the opening up pattern with something else, is I played with it with some negative ones because I wondered where it would go. So I've had someone talk about some limiting the belief they had and what opens up, and just to see the whole system. So you can do that with a negative one as well. What will happen is, as you hear yourself saying it, it generally gets more and more toxic. It gets more and more ridiculous, and which then gives us the ability to, enough of that. So who has something that you do? First hand up. So what behavior would you like to do, or to do with more finesse or elegance or something?
I was thinking about, I was talking about it with Wassily yesterday. Sometimes my girlfriend is talking to me, and I'm engaged in something else. And a couple of moments later, I say, yeah, we have to do this and this. Yeah, I just told you that. So I would like to listen more.
and that would really help this relationship.
I think so. No, I believe that.
Okay. Yeah. And so the behavior of listening, what would be the qualities of listening that you would like to be able to texture it? The qualities of listening, or even the qualities of attending to her when she begins talking that does interrupt.
I want to have the sense, or I would like to be interrupted.
Okay. So the behavior of having your attention interrupted and engaged with her now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to have that quality more, so that if she starts speaking, that I get interrupted and go, okay, I'm listening and focusing on her.
Okay. So what would be the quality, what would be some of the features, some of the factors, some of the components that would make up that behavioral response? For instance, you may need to have the ability to hear that voice, and then maybe take a snapshot of whatever you're doing, and then stepping out,
yeah.
and that now engaging her, and maybe engaging her in certain qualities, maybe making an eye lock, or just all of a sudden taking a deep breath and just being really calm, or what would be the qualities of how to turn around and to create that engagement? So the behavior really serves you and serves her.
It's the moment that I hear her speak, and, well, we're with just two people in the house, so when she talks, she's talking to me. So the moment
you talking to me?
So the moment I hear her voice, I go, hey, that triggers it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how much time for that transition?
Immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can notice where you are.
Yeah.
And just very quickly engage.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Because it's not that I'm not hearing the voice. I'm not paying attention. I'm not pulling out and not stepping out of what I'm doing. So that would be a good thing. I know I can hear her voice, so that would really trigger me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I guess part of the quality then is giving more importance to her voice, and picking up those cues that she's speaking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What states would you need to be in? What would be some of the states you need to be in to be able to pull off that response?
A state of that I'm noticing all my senses. So the fact that I'm also really using my ears at that time.
Okay, so sensory aware state.
Sensory aware state, yeah.
Okay. The times when you have done this, you turn and engaged her, and you were at your best, and it worked very well. What were the states you were in?
Very focused, very busy with one task, and my mind was all busy there. So also, I'd like the state of knowing that I'll just step out and step back in.
Okay. Okay.
So the moment I'm actually engaged in something, that I know, okay, I'm going to step out this, and then I'll step back in.
Okay. Okay. So making that clean state shift at that point. State of caring about her, state of calmness, state of excitement, state of passion,
state of respect.
Respect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's very important if somebody's talking to you and you're not listening. I don't think that's very respectful.
Okay. So sensory awareness, clean shifting, respect. Those would be some of the states. What would you need to believe? What do you believe that would allow you to be respectful as you make that clean shift and be in sensory awareness?
I believe that it's important.
Okay. Because you just said if someone's talking to you, so that sounds like a belief that supports respect. If someone's talking to you, it's respectful. It's important.
Yeah, it's important to me.
Okay, so there's one belief, and that sounds like a pretty powerful belief. It's important to be respectful and to pay attention.
Yeah.
So how fully do you believe that?
Very much, because it's the other way around. It goes for the same thing. When I say something, I also find it very important that she listens. So I think it's very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
From 0 to 10, how fully do you feel that?
7, 8.
Okay. Do you need to feel it more?
Yeah.
Okay. So be with that feeling of it's important. It's important to give attention and respect when someone's speaking. Be with that belief and the feelings that belief engenders, so that you feel that more fully. And as you feel that more fully, just notice what opens up to you about that supports that. What comes to you, what opens up to you when you feel that fully?
I feel love. I feel love about her.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so love would support this belief of respect in hearing. So how fully do you feel love?
I feel a lot of love. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially also about her. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you feel that love fully, as you've felt that respect fully, as you feel that love fully, what opens up to you that supports that?
And it creates a lot of power, inner power.
Okay. A sense of inner power?
Yeah.
That you can...
Inner power, yeah. Can do anything I want, yeah.
Okay. So how fully do you feel that inner power? So be with that sense of inner power. I can do any of this. And when you feel that fully, what opens up to you about that supports that inner power?
It's a driving force. It's one of... It's what life is about.
Okay, so this is what this is the driving force of life. Yeah. This is what life's about.
Yeah. Okay. One of the driving forces.
Okay, this is one of the key driving forces.
Yeah.
How fully do you feel that this is this is what life's about?
really nice. It's a good feeling. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what life's about. When you feel that fully, what opens up to you that's even bigger, grander, more magnificent, that supports that?
It helps in general for what I'm here for on this planet.
Okay.
So it helps me doing the things that I want to do on this planet.
Okay. So this is helping you to do what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So be with that and just notice how fully you feel that. And when you feel that fully, this is what I'm here to do on this planet, feel that inner power and feel that love and feel that respect, and then bring it down to that behavior of being able to be interrupted. And when you think about your girlfriend and she having her voice saying something to you and wanting to be in a state of respect, supported by love, supported by inner power, able to do anything, and as you move up to this is what life's about, and this is that driving force, how does all that feel?
It's a good, great, it's warm feeling, yeah.
Okay. This whole belief system, just be with that whole belief system as a gestalt, and notice how it charges your attitude for being interrupted. Is there any challenge to being interrupted now by her, or hearing her voice in the background when she's speaking to you?
Yeah, I'm turning around my head. Like,
okay.
It's a driving force that's really powerful there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to keep this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This will serve you well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, give him a hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're just going to open up a belief system. And because it's unspecified, you, to some extent, don't know what you're going to get, whether it'll be a stated belief or a value or state or whatever. Whatever opens up or whatever comes to you. And it's just a matter of opening that up, teasing it out, and then using it as a belief system to support whatever it is that you want to do at that behavioral level. You've done so much moving up and down that this should be a piece of cake now. And just feel that fully and let. And we're playing with state dependency, that when you feel it fully, then that plays with state dependency, that what opens up to you that supports that. And so then it's easier to go to some of those higher ones that gets even more resources, and because all the resources are fully aligned to that one behavior. And you might even invite the person to notice how all these resources are aligned for one specific behavior, and notice the laser beam energy, focus, or the driving power when you have all of that alignment to listening or whatever. Well, 10 minutes each. Comments or questions about that process or where it sent you or the effect it had for you?
At the end.
Do we have a microphone or? Okay, Tom's going to beam in on one.
Well, at the end of the exercise, it's a sense of total alignment with the behavior, and it's easy to perform.
Okay. So for you, the alignment was there at the very end. Okay. And that's part of its design. Sterling first.
To me, it's almost had this mental image of like a funnel. Because as I went up, and each one opened, it not only opened up another door, but it just made it broader. And it just went wider and wider. And then when Nina I was working with, she brought it down. It was like bringing all those, funneling it down, and it just increased in power. So by the time it got down to me again, it was just like a wave. It just like shot over me. So as it came down, just like got smaller and stronger. So it was a great feeling. But that was the image I had of it.
Okay. Good. Excellent. Pass it on to Gary.
I don't know if I went in the wrong direction with this or not, but I was asking the question, what would you have to believe in order to believe that? And I had a moment of getting stuck, so I said, well, what's important about that to you? Which I think is similar to what was done in APG. Did I end up doing a different exercise, or did I just ask a different question to get to the same place?
Well, you're asking a real specific question. What do you believe about that, or what's important about that, which is a way of dancing around these logical levels. Whereas this one is that non-specific, what opens up to you. When you have that fully, what opens up, or what comes to you. So we're asking a very non-specific question just to see where they go with it, and just letting it really be open-ended. Whereas what you're doing is dancing with the logical levels, what's important to you, and then you can ask any of those logical levels, what do you understand about that? What is that like? What have you decided? Is that who you are? And so that's the difference there. And my guess is that broke it loose so that you could go somewhere useful then.
Yes.
Yeah, which it certainly will do. This one here plays around with non-specificity, what opens up. And so it really frees the person to go just what opens up.
Michael, I've played with this pattern before coming to that various ways. What's interesting is that the kind of question we'd ask you, and it says like, what do you believe and what do you need to believe that, what do you need? Another way of doing it is to say, why do you believe that, why do you believe that, why do you believe that? Takes you in another direction. Inevitably, it might get you to the same place, but the pattern getting there is different. The ladder is different.
Yeah. Because the why would bring in all the reasons and explanations, and then we go to explanations, which, when we go to an explanation, that feels different than just what opens up, which may be a feeling.
And another one is Connie Ray and Grace's pattern is, if you had that fully and completely, what would that do for you?
Yeah.
That'll take you in another path. Yeah. But again, inevitably, you tend to end up in the same place. Yeah. But again, the ladder's different.
Yeah.
The hierarchy.
Yeah. So we are playing around with a metastate ladder, as it were, just layers and layers and stepping up into other thoughts, feelings, awarenesses of some sort, and so it'll have different effects. And other comments about the pattern? What will open up for you in supporting a belief, finding those empowering beliefs? In one way, this is a pattern that allows you to do some design engineer work. Here's a behavior that you want to pull off, you do pull off, but what qualities would you like to add to it? What states do you need to come from? And then all the beliefs that support. So you're designing the levels of the mind that will allow that to occur. And so then, as Sterling talked about, as you get to the power, and then bring that power down, funnel it down, and then align around that behavior. Okay.
Michael, somebody had asked me the question. They were having problems with the statement of and what belief opens up to that. And some people, one person had a problem with that. How would you change it with it? Because it didn't really take them anywhere in their thinking.
Okay. Because in Spanish, I mentioned this yesterday, in Spanish the open up doesn't translate well. So for them, you would say, what comes to you about that? I suppose you could change it to the phrase, where do you go? That would be the most resourceful place you could go in your mind and emotions about that. And so,
I'm thinking about how many times we've done this process and how many times there's a reward, like a biological and a kind of a thinking reward that goes with it, and I start to understand what you're saying about how we're designed for this. It really starts to put that belief system in of that design, because there is such a reward for that. And I want to thank you for that aspect of it and ask you, has there been any other cultures that you know of throughout history that have applied this or used this in an effective way?
And used
a metastating process, a higher...
Well, yes, of course not without that terminology, but in the sense of just layering thoughts upon thoughts. One of the things we've done in the writing workshop is to look at great literature, and great literature has that layering effect because it's inviting you into different perspectives, and as it's inviting, then great writing has that layerness built into it. Making it explicit, now that is probably new. Making it explicit, the layering of the mind. Because we've not thought about the mind in that way. We thought about the mind as moving out and going places, and so step-by-step processes is more how most models of the mind work rather than the reflexivity or the infolding, the unfolding of the mind upon its own self. Because when you go there, if you don't have models for thinking systemically, it's like, well, where do you go then? And then people just get confused, and it feels like it's going around in circles. And so then there's been so few models to model that circularity. So in that sense, what we're doing as we're exploring the structuring, the processing of the mind is new in the history. Yeah. One of the things I do want to mention, and this is back in the appendix of this particular manual, talking about logical levels, I do want to give you a chance if you want to ask some questions or just explore the neurosemantic approach to quote-unquote logical levels. A level is a horizontal level is something at the same level dimension. And then when something is in relationship to another thing, then we would have a logical level that starts the classifying or typing. And so logical types, logical levels. And in NLP, Robert Dilts was the first one really to reveal logical levels. And I have on page 70 in the first part of the appendix something I put in a number of other places, restructuring the neurological levels. Because this was the first attempt at that, and while this is not a strict logical level system, it is a wonderful checklist, and there's many NLP patterns that are built around this one. And so I've put this together just to identify some of the challenges of that model, and then on page 72, metastating the neurological levels, to take these levels and to start sorting them out. Probably one of the things that the levels are not logical in is that we have behaviors above environment. And so from a logical level or logical type, a piece of behavior is always inside of an environment or context, rather than an environment being a member of the class of behaviors. So that's where that's not a logical level system. If we're going to use, is this more encompassing than that? And so you can read some of the description there. But on page 72, I've taken Robert's list, which is a great list, and I've put really 3 of his pieces into the primary state: the environment, the behavior, and the capability or capacities. And so 3 things are really primary state facets. Because in every primary state of feeling and behavior occurs somewhere. So it's in some environment. And there's the capability for it, if we mean a strategy, a technique, the ability to do it. In fact, the word capability is a little strange there. Do we mean ability? And then behavior is the expression of that ability. Now, if we mean capability, or capability in the sense of potential, what we potentially could do or have the ability to learn, then that would be a belief about the primary state. And in that sense, it's beliefs all the way up. And so above that, we have beliefs, we have values, we have identity, we have mission, and we have spirit in Robert's list. And so beliefs about identity, who I am, beliefs about what's important, values, beliefs about mission, destiny, purpose. And so that begins to kind of resort some of that logical level. And so this might be a time to talk about logical levels if you'd like to, because it is one of the places where, as we talk about that in metastates, we have a very different approach to it. The next couple pages adds a little bit more to that, some of the levels and some of the sources of that, Bateson and Korzybski, and page 75 as well, some of the definitions of logical levels. And probably a couple twists that you have to make is the realization that every level is at the same time every other level in terms of these words. That every belief is a value, is an understanding, is a decision, is an expectation, is whatever the level is. And we have to think fluidly. So instead of steps in a hierarchy, we have to think as a fluid model. And that's where it becomes challenging to think of logical levels in that way. If we turned it back into a verb, logical leveling, logical layering, and realize that the logic is just psychologic, so psychological layering, then we really have pinpointed what the process is that we're trying to talk about. How are you layering, and how are you sequencing and categorizing this layer of thought or feeling about some other one? Ray?
Yeah, Michael, just an observation or a comment. So going back 10 or 11 years, I remember walking Robert Dill's logical levels, and as I think about it now, how different it is. However, some people, it would have freed up some thoughts and feelings and emotions. So I suppose in that sense, it was fine at the time, but you have enhanced it and empowered it and put it in a different space, a different place. So I've observed with others that has helped to a degree.
Yeah, when Robert introduced it, it really started sorting out the layerings, and then several techniques, several patterns have been developed from that, from a number of models that have been very useful.
That I'm trying to wrap my brain around. When you talk about the logical levels and the higher level modulating the lower levels, and then at the same time talking about the fluidity of the levels and how they, could you help me with that?
So it's fluid in that at any given point, what is your highest thought about it? Because this is where the fluidity of thought, we're always thinking and feeling, and that's where setting some of these frames and mapping it that this is the highest, or this is the frame that we categorize other things inside of. Okay. How we categorize that, but it's fluid. Because any belief that you take, well, what do you believe about that belief? And any belief that you have, well, step back from that belief and let's quality control that belief. And any belief that you have, you could bring, well, are you sure that that's absolutely true? You could bring doubt to it. And so that's why it's not a hierarchy, in that I have a belief and then I have a sense of identity. Well, could you have a belief about your identity, or an understanding about your identity? What have you decided who you're going to be? And so this is that fluidity. And so we say that whoever is layering, whoever's setting the frame, is going to be governing the experience, and the ability to catch and be aware of what is being layered here.
So then my extrapolation from that, it would seem like maybe that people would run into challenges when they, in their own mind, set these levels and freeze them, so they don't have the fluidity. And so then it becomes locked into almost like a snapshot, so it loses the fluidity.
Yeah.
And then it becomes locked into operating out of that level without having the ability to flex it.
So we could bring a sense of rigidity to our thinking. We could bring a sense of closeness to our thinking. We could become afraid that our thoughts could be challenged. We could become afraid that we could become wrong. And of course, what that's going to do is it's grounded into a state of almost closedness, or narrow-mindedness, or rigidness. So we could frame different things in that way. And then we do become more stiff and rigid in our thinking, and can be caught into a box to where we can't think outside the box and not have much fluidity. And then if something violates that mental world, we could have such a crisis on the inside. Who am I now? What do I believe now? And so those people, when they get interrupted or they get knocked on the side of the head with a belief being challenged, they're so disoriented. Whereas if I know it's all beliefs, it's all maps, and it's the best mapping I've done, and I'm always open to learning more, then it's hard. That fluidity creates a flexibility, so that if I get shocked, I'm just curious. It hasn't really shaken up anything, because there's not that rigidity.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about possible situation where someone's been working at a job for 20 years and suddenly they get fired or downsized. Yeah. And they've identified themselves with the I am a bank president or something, and the bank goes under. And then they have sort of a reaction to that because that part of it's been taken out. And they don't have the ability to be something else. And so the whole house of cards comes down, and then you get, postal.
Yeah, their matrix is a house of cards.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that clarifies it.
Instead of a whirlwind or an eddy or something that is a dynamic, moving, dynamic stability. Okay.
Michael, to a certain extent, what you're talking about is denominalizing these beliefs. Like I said, it's a process of believing rather than beliefs.
Yeah.
So in that case, believing is a process at every single level. Is it then, how can one then nominalize just beliefs and put it in at a level? Because there has to be a believing about something.
Exactly. So this is one of the difficulties I see in Robert's original list, and I'm sure when he put it together he didn't even think about this, but every one of those things are nominalizations, beliefs, values, identity, as if these are not processes of what we do. The only way you and I can take a process, freeze it, and keep it is with language. But then the process is we keep languaging ourselves until it's just so automatic that it drops outside of awareness, and as it were, using this metaphor, it just becomes the canopy of our consciousness. But we keep repeating it at some level. It's just outside of awareness now. And part of the change process is bringing it into awareness. But it's all process. That's why it has to be fluid. And that's why, like in a computer, refreshing a frame, refreshing a screen, and so we need refreshing. So that's why repetition will drive something in and accelerate learning. So the best way to keep what you've learned here is once a week, look at notes or just refresh it, or talk to somebody and just refresh it. Just refresh it. And because if not, then the energy of what created, the energy will degrade.
One thing I had thought about is that it's almost as if there are two levels of belief or affirmation.
This is the end of CD 10. Please insert CD 11 now.
One thing I had thought about is that it's almost as if there are two levels of belief or affirmation. There's the one level of like our neurology affirming sort of an impulse and a thought, and then there's another level of us deciding that thought matches the territory enough. So it's like we have a belief by having any thought, we're affirming that as a thought in our inner world, and then as the next level of belief would be affirming that it matches the territory, whether it does or not, but believing that it does, affirming that it does.
Yep.
Yeah, I keep thinking of the axiom, as above, so below, and I'm getting a visual of...
As above, so below.
Yes. And I think about the smallness of it, of the cellular level, looking at the Petri dishes, and whether it's on Learning Channel or something, and you see it split and then grow and split and grow and split and grow. And it seems like that when we get older, our bodies may stop growing, but the one way to continue to split and grow is through the metastating process.
Okay. I'll have to think about that one. Splitting and growing. Well, originally I took Bateson's levels and Korzybski's levels to work with the metastate thing in terms of the thoughts about thoughts or feelings about feelings. There is now a whole field called metacognition, and maybe you even studied metacognition. It was a field that was developed in 1977, and there's quite a number of people and research. If you ever have insomnia, just pull out some of those books, and that'll do it. But they're studying memory and the metacognitive devices that we use. That is, the thoughts and the mechanisms that we use to remember. And so a lot of metacognition has been plugged right into AI, all the artificial intelligence studies about how to program a computer to do layering of thoughts. And so what we're working with is reflexivity. We have a reflexivity that's so fluid and sometimes just keeping up with our own thoughts. And so once we get into an energy state, because it's so connected to our body, it's embodied. Now, somebody else that I've really tapped into for metastates is George Lakoff and Mark Johnson. You may be familiar with their original book in 1980, Metaphors We Live By. But they were tapping into cognitive linguistics, and then both of them wrote a couple other books. I like George Lakoff's book, Women, Fire, and Dangerous Things. And it's all about classifications and well, there was a culture, and I don't remember the culture right now, and the culture had only 3 classifications of words: fire, women, and dangerous things. And you know, they fit in one of those categories. But they wrote another book in the year 2000 called The Embodied Mind. Has anybody read The Embodied Mind? It's one of those major tomes, but it's all about how that mind consciousness is embodied in us, which is why when you get into a state, you can get that layering and that swirl of those levels that's really swirling because of the energy of the state that you're in. And so the embodied mind. And Charles Faulkner has been tapping into a lot of that and pulling it out and creating several new NLP patterns that he's doing some really cutting-edge work around that. They talk about how that our consciousness is the kind of consciousness it is because of the kind of bodies we have. And so we have up and down and front and back, and so many of our prepositions in our language is front and back. And so he's been playing with a lot of that kind of stuff in cognitive linguistics. But the kind of consciousness we have is because of the kind of bodies we have. And our bodies set some of the most basic points of references and frames of references for how we think. And so I've been tapping into a lot of that, and so some of the metastates is also built around that embodiment. So that's why we always we use our body to coach our mind how to think the next layer, but then we take those thoughts and bring it back into the body and then out so that it's an embodied mind experience. And that leads into one other thing I want to kind of wrap up before we go to our break of lunch, and that is emotions. We talked about this on the second day of Accessing Personal Genius, being able to recognize that our emotions are just emotions. And an emotion really is a holistic thing because it's more than just a sense, a feeling. It's how we're feeling our thoughts in our body. So we have the word soma, body, soma. Somatic is our somatic states or our psychosomatic states, so that every emotion is a somatic state. We're feeling our thoughts. And that's why health is so closely related and connected to what we're doing here, as well as other things. So that's why it is so important, it seems to me, to welcome all of our emotions, all of our somatic responses, because it always is making sense. Whether it's useful or not is another question, but that means that there's no bad emotions. And if I'm going to be fully alive and take my personal genius into the future, then being well adjusted, accepting, appreciating my emotions as emotions, emotional states, and then how do I use the emotional state? When is it appropriate and useful to be angry or fearful or joyful or learning or compassionate or whatever the state is, how to use it. So like this morning, when to use trust and when to use distrust. So that emotions are just emotions. So I want to revisit that just before we go to lunch. Does everybody have full and complete permission to own and to feel your emotions? Amen. Because that emotions is what makes us alive.
They are meta emotions, and we go into the deal of the all the semantics we're playing around.
Okay.
But I just extrapolating the idea of the man you was just saying that because of our cognitive mind is settled by the boundaries of the soma limitations, so even the emotions are more limited to the soma boundaries. So that will be very interesting to explore,
right?
Because I feel well, I have like a very limited set of emotions, somatic, but then in dealing with all this meta stating, I start feeling different things that I didn't feel, but I don't know if they are located in my soma or they are outside of my soma, into an energy field that is different and is new. Completely, absolutely different, and so that's our limit of the soma, which is extended through the body.
So if our body does create some limitations or some constraints for our feelings, then it seems to me the more physically well and alive and healthy we are, the more of these states that we can experience. So one way to expand your repertoire is to keep your body healthy and alive. So the more alive and vital, the more we eat right and exercise regularly, we have more soma, because things can get caught into the body. And I didn't know this when I wrote the first edition of Metastates. At that time, I did not think that metastates could get into the body. So one of the ways of distinguishing a metastate from a primary state is where in the body do you feel that? Where do you feel self-esteem? I don't know. It's a meta emotion. But now we know that we can get it into the body. Give me the breath of self-esteem. So we can coach our body how to feel that. I came across a guy, I'd always say, well, where do you feel failure? And I expected everybody to say, well, it's just my judgment. It's my evaluation that I'm a failure, because I don't actually feel it. But then I met the guy who said, I feel it right here. I said, well, what is it like? He's a kick in the stomach. And it's like, at first I didn't know where to go with this, because I didn't think that a metastate could be located that much in the body. But what he had done, he had just mind to muscled it, and it felt like a kick in the stomach, and it hurt. To think about becoming a failure, it hurt, because his soma was registering those thoughts. And so the thing we'll do after lunch, I want to do the drop down. I didn't put it in here, so I'll write it on the board if you're not familiar with the drop down through, because that releases things that's in the soma. That releases it. And there may be some of you that may have a thought that still has one of those kind of things. It has an emotional charge to it, and it's in the body. And of course then, if we think, well, that really makes it real. You know, when I just think things, that's not so real, but when I feel it, then it's really real. Well, what it means is we've just coached it, mind to muscled it into the neurology, and so the drop down through can release that. But we can take all of these great emotions, these great meta emotions we've been exploring and texturing and playing with, and we can coach our body so that it is in our muscles as a felt way, as part of our somatic response. And so this ties together how we think about emotions, that every one of these states is an emotional state. And it's a matter of degree, how much do I feel it? And where do I feel it, and what way do I feel it, and what effect does it have for me? So where the business world has been with emotional intelligence, it seems like we've got some tools for really working with a healthy emotional intelligence. And the first thing is just acceptance of my emotions and appreciation of my emotions, and the ability to move and play with them so they're not rigid, but we can get them out of body if they don't serve us anymore. And then the somatic and the psychosomatic responses we have to thoughts and feelings, because we're all psychosomatic. It's just a question of what are you running through that process. Because we metabolize thoughts. So as you go out for lunch and metabolize food, the thoughts of the morning, may they digest fully and completely, and in ways that serve you well, giving you more energy, more power, more excitement, more ability to be who you are. We're going to take an hour and 15 minutes for lunch, and then we'll take 30 minutes in the modeling groups. Those of you in the 7-day, you get a longer lunch. And then we'll, yeah. And then when we come back, we'll do the drop down through. It'll be the first.